Yes, Paula, thank you for getting back to me. Yes, I am free, yes.
Good. Thank you very much. Firstly, apologise. I apologise because I missed you on Friday and we didn't manage to speak, did we? So just to explain, I was getting some advice from the managers.
Uh-huh.
The reason being, Mr. Hussein, is that you asked me about giving our names to customers, and
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to confirm that the actual policy has changed recently, so I wanted to be absolutely sure I was giving you the correct information. So would you like me to read this out, or do you want me to email it to you? What would be best?
Okay, all right. Well, if you can do both, if you can just read it out to me.
Well, I'll do one or the other. I'm not going to double handle. Let me explain what the difference is, because we used to have in our managing customer contact policy, which you can access from our website, by the way. We used to have a section about giving your name to customers, and this is no longer in that policy. So it's really expected that it's a guideline or guidance now internally for staff. So I'll read it to you, and it should give you an idea of how we aim to be open and transparent, and what the differences are when staff might choose not to give their name. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So in the previous contract policy, it said, we aim to be as open as possible and normally expect staff to give their full name and department over the telephone. However, if you're taking inquiries from members of the public and are concerned about giving your full name because of the specific behaviour of a particular customer, you may give only your first name and department. You should mention any such instances and the reason for holding your last name to your line manager. If a customer indicates that they are not happy that you have not provided your full name, give your line manager's full name and details of the complaints about the ICO section of our service standards of what to expect webpage. Full names and direct dial telephone numbers should always be provided on letters or emails, unless agreed in exceptional circumstances by your line manager, with a note added to the relevant case or contact record. That's it, Mr. Hussein.
Okay.
That's the internal advice that we now have.
Oh, okay, all right. Can I just ask, when did that change?
Well, the manager checked it for me. I haven't got an exact date for you, but I know it's very recently.
Okay, all right. Because we've had a full and frank conversation previously, and you've given me your name, and I think that's very important because I think it's very important to identify. I think if you remember, the inquiries with yourself was all to do with the identification. Now, now when I ring up, as a matter of courtesy, I always ask for people's name, because it just gives you a point of contact. Now, from the advice that you've read out to me, if I ring up and I ask for somebody's name at the start of the conversation, that does not warrant suspicious or concerning behaviour, does it? So if I ring up and we're on the call line, and I think that's what happened in our case. I did ask you for your name. When the call is answered and I'm asking for your name, that does not warrant suspicious behaviour, does it? Or concerning behaviour.
Of course, and I understand that. I
Yeah.
do understand that,
Yeah.
Mr. Hussein, and our managers will take this on board, because you've actually raised some positive points, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, the thing is, Paula, thank you for that compliment. But equally, I've been. One of the other things that we would discuss was regarding your conduct and behaviour, and I've been dealing with a lot of people on call lines, and I've equally been very, very impressed and with your conduct and behaviour, because I think you set a professional standard. Now, as you can appreciate, one of the reasons I have a personal policy to record conversations is because I be often subjected to quite a lot of discrimination on the phone, or conduct and behaviour that I don't think is appropriate, especially for a contact line that you as a call handler know is not being recorded. Now, often what happens is that if, for example, I get into a dispute with somebody, the call is not recorded at your end, and it's just my word against the other call handler's word. And often I find that I become very exasperated. So equally, if you remember, one of the next questions was in relation to recording and publishing Saying, I hope you have some information regarding this. But the purpose of it, you see, it's not, I mean, one of the things is that when I've spoken to previous managers or line managers at the ICO, they've obviously they've asked me for my contact, they've asked me for my name when I'm ringing up anonymously, and I have asked them, why is that? So they look to identify me, and the reason for them looking to identify me as an anonymous caller is because you also have a policy where people are ringing up and harassing or acting untowards staff members. Now I find that highly peculiar, because I'm just thinking, are there people that got nothing better to do than ring up, call staff handlers, that are trying to do their job and harassing them? I just find that scenario very highly implausible. But however, I'm not the ICO, and there's many strange people out there. So I understand for safety purposes that you would want to identify me as an anonymous caller, and you have a blacklist of people that you don't deal with and stuff. But my inquiries are always kind of genuine. I've got better things to do than harass people on the telephone, or and ultimately it serves no purpose for me to do that. I'm just finding that slightly difficult to understand. But irrespective, I mean, I'm not the ICO, but often when one of the complaints I've lodged with the ICO himself is that I rang up on anonymously to get some advice, and the call handler, which was I think a manager or something, was trying to identify me and profile me, and I took issue with that and lodged that complaint with the ICO back in October or November, I believe. And I think I've emailed you the details of that, because I don't think that was appropriate. Now the reason I ring up is simply because I think there's inconsistencies, and I hope you can appreciate that there should be a level of consistency. So when I ring up the ICO, what the minimum standard of quality of service I would like is something like how you've handled my calls. I find it when you're speaking to me in a very respectful and courteous manner, I just finding it very difficult, even if I was an obnoxious person, to be rude and disrespectful to you. However, there are times when call handlers can trigger somebody, and they may react negatively, because I can't see why somebody would ring up a call line simply to be abusive unless they have been inappropriately spoken to. So similarly with yourself, I find it very difficult to be obnoxious or not being transparent or not being courteous to yourself, because you're being courteous to me. All right, it's very difficult for somebody, if somebody's being courteous and respectful, and let's just say for argument's sake that I started at some point becoming obnoxious or rude or everything, you can simply explain to me, look, Mr. Hussain, I'm here to handle your call. Please, can you not use that tone of voice, or can you not use that language with myself? I'm trying to be helpful. See, that kind of language puts me, neutralizes any hostile situation. But where you're being triggered yourself, then I think this is an opportunity for yourselves to as an organization to actually get improved customer services. Now so I think so it starts with being courteous and telling me your name. Now one of the problems I have is that as you can appreciate, I contacted you because of identity, and now when I'm making a subject access request, my identity is being requested to a very high level, like my passport or driving license, and it's all regarding this issue of identity. So when I'm ringing up yourselves as the ICO, and you're only giving me your first name, it doesn't set a good precedence, because there are many scam callers calling from India that only give me their first name, and you can tell they've got a strong Indian accent, or and they tell me their name is Mark or Tony, or you can tell that's a fake name, and I think especially with regards to this naming policy, I don't think, you're a legitimate organization, you're publicly funded, and there should be no anonymity in your call handling, because often that puts me in a situation where if I'm going to lodge a complaint, then I have to ask for your full name. Now so I don't think, from what you've read out to me, I don't think that's a reason for not giving out your full name, because at the start of conversation, you would not know if the call handler is being is going to be are threatening or misbehaving. So if I start a call and I ask you for your full name, and you say, oh, well, I choose not to give my full name, I only want to give my first name, this is problematic because I can't identify yourself, and there's no reason why you should not give your full name because you're working, in a public facing role. Now, the problem also is that a lot of people, and one of the problems I'm having, which is obviously we're coming on to the next subject, is that people that I'm dealing with, and obviously it's not just yourself, I deal with a lot of like people from the public authorities, like particularly the local authority or the healthcare authorities, and people obviously want to have a right to privacy while at work. And that brings us to the second question that I asked you to look into, is because a lot of people, as you can appreciate, it's not in the call handler or the person's interest to be identified, because ultimately if they can be identified, then they can be their conduct can be scrutinized. So ideally, I would think from the perspective that I have, that people that I deal with in an ideal situation, they don't even want to give you the name, they would rather give you like a number. All right, because then they have an anonymity. And what concerns me is that I, as an individual, as a private citizen, I'm asked to identify myself. However, conversely, when I'm asking somebody for simply their name, first name and second name, and they can say, "Well, I choose not to do so because I'm not required to provide you with my full name." That's what information that I've got, and all I would like actually is consistency in the approach being taken. Now, I appreciate what you've explained to me, and I do not think it's the right approach, because you're a legitimate public funded organization. You're not some call handler in India where you're giving me some first name basis only, having that anonymity. But this brings us to the second question of me recording yourself and then me publicizing it, which obviously is, hopefully you can give me some further clarity on, because my understanding is that obviously there is no. The simple question is this: is there an expectation of privacy while you're carrying out a commercial activity? And I don't think there should be. I don't think that's right. That I have a right to privacy because I'm a private citizen. I'm carrying out a private activity. All right, I'm not making money. But conversely, and this is not just a problem that I have with the ICO. Obviously, I deal with a lot of other organizations, and ultimately, employees are familiar with the right to privacy. So but then they expect to have a right to privacy whilst carrying out a commercial activity, such as working. And I think that needs to be kind of clear. So when I rang up last time on Friday, I believe, I spoke to one of your colleagues, and I was exceedingly exasperated because, first of all, they said that I don't want to give you my first name, and I said, okay, well, I'm still trying to understand she said that I don't want to give you my surname, and I said, okay, that's fair enough. That's the policy. If that's the policy, that's fair enough. But then obviously when I was making some very specific general understanding of the legislation, so such as I said I can take photographs of people in public, and she was saying no, you can't without permission, and you and I know that that's not correct. So the next thing I wanted to know is that right now, do you have an expectation of privacy while speaking to me?
No, I think I've been clear. I've been clear about that, Mr. Hussein, and as I said, I'm happy to speak to you anytime, and you know who I am. You've got my full name. I've explained that I'm happy to provide you with that information.
No, I didn't ask. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you personally. I'm asking the general question to the ICO, so I can apply that. There should be consistency, isn't there? So there's no expectation. You and I understand that there's no expectation of privacy in public, is there?
I can only speak for the ICO, and our advice now is, generally speaking, we should look to provide our name if requested.
Okay, all right. No, but the question is this: that I'm trying to have a broader, general understanding of privacy and identity and publicity and being. I'm trying to find out what that grey line is between privacy and public. And so that's what I am obviously struggling with when I'm dealing with other organizations as well, which are giving me, I believe, inconsistent information. Look, I'm trying to be a law-abiding citizen. I'm trying to understand. I don't want to do anything that's against the law or against any principle. But I'm a civil rights activist, and I need to know what my civil rights are and what I can do and what my freedoms and liberties are. And so, for me personally, that aspect of liberty and tyranny is the fine line that I'm trying to determine for myself as a citizen and a civilian in this society. So I'm trying to understand what that there's a strict line between liberty and tyranny. So just for me to explain that to you a little bit further. So the fact that I can covertly record you without your permission is an aspect of my liberty. The fact that you can covertly record me without my permission is an aspect of tyranny. So that very fine line I've defined for myself as so I can covertly record you, but conversely, you can't covertly record me. Oh, and if you were to covertly record me, that would be tyrannical. And for me to covertly record you would be an expression of my liberty. So why is that? Why would that be the case? Well, I define that as because for me to record yourself is an aspect of liberty because I'm not I'm free to do so. However, it would be an aspect of tyranny on your part because you are a corporation or an officer or basically a representative of the state. All right, even though so anybody who's working, and that's why if you are to record me, you have to inform me because otherwise it would be it would be classed as tyrannical. I need to be like informed. So even though me recording is like a simple thing, for me personally it defines a distinction between liberty and tyranny. And as a citizen, I believe in that the state should be held accountable to the citizen. And so therefore when any agency of the state, so that does not necessarily mean like the government or the local authority or or an organization such as yourself, publicly funded, but even privately funded, organizations, even somebody carrying out a commercial activity is at that stage an agent of the state, and therefore they come under the remit of the Data Protection Act. So therefore anybody who's carrying out a commercial activity, if they are to retain my data, I have a right to access that data under the SAR request. But conversely, I do not come under the data. I do not become a data controller because if I'm collecting data, I can do so as a civilian. So even though it's a very subtle and nuanced point, but it's a very pertinent and point that I need to be very clear upon. That am I right or am I wrong? And so that's hence why I asked the question as that is there an expectation of privacy when you're carrying out a commercial activity? I'm asking that as a general question, which then I have a better understanding on, because I don't believe that not just you personally, but an employee of the ICO has an expectation of privacy while carrying out a commercial activity. And what I mean by a commercial activity is being employed and having your time remunerated. And I just wanted your help and assistance in helping me understand this, and hence why I've been like quite boisterous in the fact that I said, look, I've recorded you, I'm going to publicize this. What is preventing me from doing so? So could you assist me in helping me better understand that is there an expectation of privacy whilst you carry out a commercial activity such as being employed in an organization?
Okay, well, I think I've answered that question, Mr. Hussein, in regards to use of name. So I'd like to just move on to the question you raised about publishing calls. Because the ICO's view is that this is likely to fall within domestic use, which I've touched on before, as you'll remember.
Yes.
So we're satisfied that you're publishing the calls in adherence with your requirements of domestic use. So I hope that helps you.
Yeah, and well, I know my rights. so hence why, but it's important for everybody else to know those rights. So can I just ask, I sent you an email on Friday, I believe. It was a call recording of your colleague. Did you review that at all?
No, I didn't. I'll pass that to a line manager to review.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Because
they're in the process of reviewing that, Mr. Hussein, just so that you're aware.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, obviously, that call, or the calls that I've had with yourself are not publicized. They are. I have put them, that's what I wanted to ask yourself is that, as you can see from the emails, I take my responsibility as a citizen quite seriously, and I do lodge complaints because I believe that it's an opportunity for you as an organization to improve yourself, and I also so. In relation to the call recordings with yourself, I just wanted to ask you personally if I can publicize them into the public domain.
The calls?
The conversations that we've had.
Yes, because we've determined that you're able to publish the calls because it falls within the domestic use policy. That's something I've clarified.
Okay, all right. But I wanted to ask you, the problem is that a lot of people are unfamiliar with the law, so they apply their own understanding of the law. Now, obviously, someone like yourself fully has had this issue reviewed with, but as you can appreciate, you've not reviewed the call that I had on Friday with your colleague, which was resulted in a complaint because I was trying to explain these things to her as a call handler to the public, and she was giving some false information stating that you cannot record me or record anybody without their permission, and you understand that that's not correct. So in this the reason I asked these questions to yourself is that I don't want to personally, I want to ask you your personal question. Are you happy for me to make that public? Because I don't have to make it public. But what I will be doing, obviously, because I've recorded it, I did want to say to yourself that I wanted to forward that to the ICO and yourself as a compliment to say the fact that, I'm very satisfied with the way this call is handled my call. And the reason for that is that I don't want to come across as somebody who's just complaining for the sake of complaining. When I receive good service, I want to give positive feedback. The whole point of complaining or raising complaints is to provide the ICO with feedback from the public, all right, and how they're handling and how they're dealing with the situation. And I believe that I'm doing that as a civil activity. And so I wanted to proceed to obviously send the ICO my compliments about how you've handled the call with myself, and that others should equally be trained accordingly, because one of the reason that I've had to complain on Friday is because the call handler has not received any training about the Data Protection Act, and what they were doing in the absence of knowing how the Data Protection Act does work, they have rather than stating to me that I don't know this information, they've then proceeded to give me their own interpretation of what they feel how the law should work rather than how the law does work. And often that's the problem I have, is that as an employer, obviously your priority is to retain your staff. So you don't want to antagonize staff members, because obviously they can leave. Like, for example, if you realize now that, well, actually I'm in a job now where potentially my calls can be recorded, my voice can be recorded and published without my permission, I don't want to have this role. So can you understand that as an employer you want to retain your staff members, but from conversely, it should be understood that in a pub, there is no expectation of privacy while carrying out a commercial activity, and that is something that the ICO does need to have established, because the people often feel that everybody knows that they have a right to privacy under the Human Rights Act, but then they go into a place of work and they equally expect that right to privacy. And this has been illustrated by my call with your colleague on Friday, who obviously was of the opinion that I can't record her, I need a permission, and that's frankly not correct. And I don't expect that from public authority organisations generally, but particularly I don't expect that kind of response from an ICO, from the ICO call line. So the question that I wanted to ask is that, obviously I've made yourself aware that I've recorded the call. I would like to forward that, with your permission, to the ICO as positive feedback regarding yourself personally, and to say that obviously I can be very cantankerous at times, but it's only because people are giving me wrong information. And the way that you've handled the call today, I think, is a positive way, and it should. I would expect other call handlers to handle the call in the same manner as yourself. And if I believe that if staff members are dealing with members of the public in a courteous and respectful manner, it would only require the public to deal with the staff members obviously in the similar courteous manner. So this aspect of naming, or we don't have to give our names, full names, because we feel that there might be some negativity in that. That shouldn't be the case. And so therefore, I believe that if the staff are trained properly at the ICO to give me proper, consistent information, then that shouldn't be a problem then. So the coming back to the point is that would there be any issue with you personally for me to forward that onto the ICO as a positive feedback?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hussein. And as I said, this falls within your domestic use, and if you choose to take that forward as a compliment, absolutely, please do so. That's your choice, your decision. And just while I've got the opportunity, thank you for all the comments that you have made, because I think they have been very positive, and that's why I've shared them with my line manager, and it's for them ultimately to take this matter forward, and if they feel that more staff training is required, then we will do that. So thank you, and as I say, just to reiterate, it's for you to decide how you further process that information, and we're satisfied that your publishing of the calls falls within domestic use, so I'll leave that for you to decide how you take the matter forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so just to finishing off on that point, so you did have some personal concerns last time we spoke about me recording. No, you did not have any issues with me recording the calls, but there was some concern you had regarding publicizing them and making me a data controller. And now you've got some feedback stating that even if I publicize the calls, I don't come under the remit of the Data Protection Act as a data controller, because they're for domestic purposes only. And domestic purposes can be defined as how do you define? Just for my understanding, would it be right to say that domestic purposes would be for if I'm not making if it's not a commercial activity? So right now, if I publicize them on my YouTube channel, because I'm not making any money out of them, I'm not a data controller. But can I just ask that if, for example, I choose to monetize the call the call recordings, would I then become under the scope of the Data Protection Act as a data controller? And my understanding is that that's the case, but I just wanted to have that confirmed.
Well, in a nutshell, as you know, you're just processing personal information for your own domestic use, aren't you? So it falls outside of data protection, really.
Yes, but when does it become under the data? When does my domestic use come? When do I cross that line of it becoming a data controller? Obviously, right now, that's why I asked the question. My videos are not monetized, all right. So I'm not making any money out of the videos. I'm simply doing this as a domestic activity. So I'm very clear about the fact that because I'm not making any money, I'm not carrying out a commercial activity, and therefore, if I'm not carrying out commercial activity, it then obviously necessarily falls into that category of domestic activity, because I'm not making any money out of it. But my question is this: that should I then monetize my YouTube channel where I am making money out of it, does that then fall outside of the domestic use?
Well, just to be absolutely clear, Mr. Hussein, domestic purposes means personal data processed in the course of a purely personal or household activity with no connection to a professional or commercial activity.
Yes.
And that would be outside of the UK GDPR scope.
Yes, I understand.
This means that if you only use personal data for such things as writing to friends and family or taking pictures for your own enjoyment, something of that nature, you are not subject to the UK GDPR.
But the question was this, that if I publicize the call recordings on YouTube, so the whole public can review them. That,
But I've clarified that,
yeah.
I think, for you, that we've cleared that with the manager, and we feel that that's for your own domestic
Yes,
purposes.
and the reason for that is, and the definition for that is because I'm not carrying out, just as you quoted me the legislation or the terminologies, that I'm not carrying out a commercial activity.
No, well, you said to me it was a hobby, so
Yes.
that's what I based it on, that it's a purely personal
Yes.
activity for yourself, which you told me was a hobby.
Yes, that's correct. So, but when that hobby turns that I can commercialize it, then do I? Is it at that stage that I become the data controller? I'm just trying to
That may change the purpose. I'm going to be quite brief now, because I have tried to answer the questions, Mr. Hussein, and I've really got to move on to some other things.
Okay.
But as you know, if the purpose changes and it becomes a professional activity,
Yes.
or a commercial activity, as
Yes.
you said,
Yes.
then that may change from domestic purposes
Yes.
to make you a controller.
Yes.
Subject to the UK GDPR. So you've got the two sides of the coin.
Yep. I
That's
understand.
for you to decide on.
Yes. No, I understand. No, that was my understanding as well. I just wanted to have it clarified. So just to solidify it in my mind that when do I cross that line to become a data controller? And I think I'm quite clear. If I was to monetize and make money out of the call recordings, that would then be a commercial activity because I'm getting money for it, and therefore I would become a data controller, and therefore
I would say so.
yeah. But so that I'm satisfied with those things, with those responses. But I'm still I still need I would still like a definitive answer regarding the like giving the full name, not in the context of the ICO, but obviously when I've asked for the data, as you remember, this call started with me looking to identify the data protection officer. Now the data protection officer has not chosen to provide their name. I've then subsequently gone on to make a subject access request under the through the What Do They Know website, and I've been told the fact that the data controller does not have to provide me with their name because they come under the Section 40 exemption of the Section 40 exemption of the Freedom of Information Act. So it's still I'm struggling with the fact that the data protection officer does not have to provide me with the name because they're saying that the name is private. Private, it comes under the Data Protection Act and they don't have to provide the name. So the whole purpose of me contacting you initially was for me to know the fact that the data protection officer who is put there by legislation effectively does not have to give me their full name. So we're back at this point where you as the ICO would ask your call handlers to provide their full name unless they feel that would they don't feel comfortable doing so because of the behavior of the caller. So effectively you're still saying that the name should be published, but yet the data protection officer who is a position created in statute effectively does not have to provide me with their name because they're then reliant on the Data Protection Act. So could you just assist me with this aspect, because why should your call handler's name be given out and publicized effectively onto YouTube, but yet the data protection officer can state that they're not required to give me their name because their name is their personal data, and therefore the Freedom of Information exemption applies. I just want to get your input on this.
Yeah, I'm going to have to bring the call to a close really now, because we've entered into that conversation previously and I've answered that question. I'm going to have to move on now.
Okay.
I've got quite a few things to do. I'm really sorry.
Okay, Ms. Flanagan. I mean, obviously, I don't want to take up any more of your time. If you're looking to bring the call to an end, that will do that. I'm satisfied with the with your responses, and thank. But I obviously, now that I've lodged a formal complaint regarding your colleague on Friday, I would like to speak to somebody regarding that conduct and behaviour. And hopefully, you've explained to me that some managers are reviewing that call and they're going to contact me back, and I can have a conversation with them regarding those issues.
That's on. Yes, I have. Thank you. And again, thanks for all your comments, Mr. Hussain. I'm sorry, I am going to have to bring it to a close.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
Been quite a lengthy conversation.
Okay.
Of course, you're welcome to continue speaking with the helpline. You have my name if I can help you, and I'm free.
Yep.
But yes, in answer to your question, I passed that on to a manager. They will review it. The points you've raised will, I trust, help us to improve the services that we provide. So, thank you, and the line manager will be in touch with you.
Okay, so can I just ask, was this call recorded by yourself?
No.
Okay, all right. So obviously, what I'll do is.
I've made no notes. I've not recorded it. Absolutely not.
Okay, so I think what I would like to do is I've recorded this call, and I will be forwarding it to your managers just so that they have a positive feedback regarding how I feel as a member of the public and a service user that calls should be handled, and maybe they can take some feedback from the conversations that I've been having with yourself so they can better and appropriately train the staff members. So I'll be proceeding to do that, and I'll be also equally proceeding to inform the ICO how satisfied I've been with yourself. And thank you for your time and
You're welcome.
And being
I'm glad you're satisfied,
yes.
Mr. Hussain.
Okay.
And that's what we're here ultimately to do.
Okay.
Is to try to provide a great service, and
Yep.
I hope I've helped you today.
Yes, I think you've personally helped me, but I remain disappointed with the organisation as a whole. But on a personal level, the way you've conducted yourself towards me, I think is highly professional, and you've been very courteous and respectful to me, and I am equally courteous and respectful to yourself. And I think that a lot more people, your managers, can learn a lot about how they should be dealing with customers from your personal conduct towards me and the way you've managed and handled the call today. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Bye for now.
Bye.